Hey, it's Joseph here. Even though a lot of people work with Revit in daily basis, creating Revit families or even modifying is not something that everyone feels comfortable with. However, it is certainly worth learning about it. You can further streamline your workflows and you can do so much more with correctly built families. Over the years, I have learned a few tips and tricks, and there are some new ways that we have at our disposal. I would like to cover those things today. Unfortunately, it really isn't all that difficult once you get the hang of it. So this video will be a good place to start everything with if you're learning for the first time. And even if you know a few things already, there will be some tips and tricks that you'll be able to pick up during this video. So get comfortable and let's jump right in. And before, I want to mention about our sponsor, MSI Workstations. MSI has sponsored this video for me to show how their workstation laptops are just built for complex architectural tasks that we do. Their powerful workstations such as this WS75 would be able to everything from complex drawing and document handling such as dealing with heavy vector graphics to graphic design work that we typically do as designers, Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign, and even Premiere Pro. And typical architectural 3D modeling to production design using Revit, Format, AutoCAD, SolidWorks, and SketchUp are just not a problem at all. And the professional rendering with V-Ray, Enscape, and Lumion can be handled with the high-performance graphics card, 6 GB of VRAM that NVIDIA Quadro 5000 has. And when the time is right, you can even run VR softwares on this laptop without a problem. This specific laptop includes 4K mini LED display, which is optional, and the screen is incredibly color accurate, vibrant, and bright. This makes judging your project's color easy and accurate. You don't have to second guess your work. All of these great specs on this laptop means that either you're going to get desktop grade or even better performance out of this machine. And to demonstrate the capabilities of this laptop, I'll be using this laptop to do the tutorial today, and then I'll be recording the screen. And to get started, let's open up Revit. I'll be using 2021 version today. And to use a project that everyone should have access to, let's open this specific Revit example file. As soon as the project opens up, I'm just gonna double click on level 1 so that we are looking at this specific plan right here. And we have quite a simple plan here. There are some colors because this is a room plan with a specific legend, and those splashes of color indicate what they are. Let's go ahead and zoom into kitchen and dining area. And as we discuss about family today, let's just kind of set out our concept. The Revit file as a whole is comprised of different families that contains parametric data, 3D shape, so we can later go ahead and modify them. And because it has a lot of data, you can collect those data into schedules for quantity and cost type of things, and also utilize the 3D information for visualization, materiality, that sort of thing. All the walls, the ceilings, and the floors, all the basic building elements are also made out of families, but it's not something that we make. We just modify the parameters with. So the ones that we want to focus today are the entourages that you put into your model, such as furnitures, equipment, casework, and vegetation, and perhaps MEP elements as well. So for example, let's look at this kitchen stool. There are 6 of them right here. I can kind of zoom into them. And if I actually highlight one of them, you'll see that it is a model group. And it is array group 4 because this is made with a array function. So I'm gonna go ahead and double click on them to activate inside into the group. And if I single click this element again, you'll see that this specific family now has been highlighted. It is a bar chair. It is a furniture element. And note that we have a few parameters here that we can edit, but we can also go into edit type. And then this type property is going to show up with the family name and a type and few other parameters that we can modify. So now we can kind of tell that this is made with two different materials and finishes. The bracket material is Herman Miller and the cushion material is leather tan. So I guess this furniture is Herman Miller. If we come out of there by clicking cancel and then do edit family up here, now it just kind of opens up as another file that we can kind of modify separately. We can orbit around and pan around with using the scroll mouse button and then holding down shift key as well. So let's say we want to increase the size of this round top here. I can go to views and then the floor plans and then the reference level as well and highlight that element. And here I can actually hit WT, which is going to tile all the views, and ZA for zoom all, so that I can kind of fit the model onto the screen. And as I highlight this one, you'll see that I highlighted the top. I can confirm that. And from here, I can go to edit extrusion and notice how I can just kind of highlight this extrusion outline and notice how the dimension is now showing up. It is currently at 145. I can actually go ahead and type in 200 to modify to something bigger. And then I can accept the change by finish edit modes with the check here. And then as I do that, now the size have increased. So now we just need to bring this family back into our main project. The two ways that we can do that is either to load into project or load into project and close. In this case, we kind of finalize our modification. So we're just gonna go ahead and click this one. And this is asking, do I want to save changes to bar chair RFA file? It is basically asking if I wanna save a separate copy of this file. And in this case, I wanna click no. And it is also going to ask me this dialog because it already has this specific family. What do I wanna do with the modified information? Overwrite the existing version is what I'm going to click on. And from here, now the group has been changed to have bigger size top on the chair. So I can finish that. It was quite easy, wasn't it? And I'm sure a lot of people would have gotten to this point on their own. So let's go ahead and up a notch by having some sort of parameter onto the family. And from here, I want to increase the size of the window. I'm going to type TW, which is the opposite of WT, which is a window tile function. So basically, we just maximize this screen. So I'm gonna double click on this group again, highlight the family, and then I'm gonna go to edit family so we can edit again. Go on to the top view again, and then just highlight the shape here, edit extrusion again. And as I highlight this one, you'll see that there's a little icon that shows up next to the dimension. And if I click on that, a dimension becomes not a temporary dimension. And then from here, I can highlight and change just like how we used to. In this case, I'm gonna change back to 200 because that was the dimension that I liked. And then I can highlight the entire dimension by just clicking on this line here, and on the top, you'll see label, and then label is none at the moment. So I can click on this one, create parameter. So we're gonna assign some sort of parameter to this one. So the top box here, parameter type, is not something that we're gonna worry about right now. So we're just gonna give it a meaningful name, top radius. But we need to understand what the difference between type versus instance is. And a lot of Revit family language will kind of make sense as soon as you understand those two. And you don't need to, but if I were to back out here, and as I highlight the family, and notice how there were a couple of parameters out here versus the ones that are available inside the type properties. So this is basically where all the type properties are going to reside on. In order to change the parameters of the type, you're gonna have to have your unique type so that you have to duplicate, and then they're gonna have the unique parameters to each types that you're going to assign, versus this is the instant parameters. Basically, you can type different values in here and modify that specific element and not impact anything else. So I just kind of wanted to highlight the differences for you. And let me go back to the same dialog, and we're gonna leave this one as type because we're not gonna have 10 different sizes of top of the stools on furniture like this. And then it is definitely dimensions, and we're just gonna click OK. And then as soon as that has shown up, and we can accept that edit by clicking on this check here. And then same practice, we're gonna click on this button, and I don't want to save it, but I want to overwrite. And as I do that, nothing should have changed on the screen, but if I go back to the edit type, you can see now the top radius has been changed to 200. So this one I'm gonna name it as bar chair 200, whatever the unit was. And then I'm going to duplicate one and then call this one as 100. And let's see what this 100 does. So 100, enter. And then if I do OK, notice how that one now switched over to 100. And because this is an array item, as I finish the group, notice how the rest has changed as well. So those two would have received the same exact family type versus these ones actually remained as bar chair 200. So now you have two different type of families that have different sizes of the top. And if you want to have them as different sizes throughout versus this sort of cluster of the grouping, I can ungroup them and then basically highlight this one and then just change the size and highlight that one and then change its size so that the two different top sizes of the stools are next to this bar for whatever reason. The practical application that you can have type difference in chairs or stools are something like materiality. So you can have a white one versus a gray color chair, and they're just kind of mix match in the dining table setup. The next level of Revit family that I want to cover is basically starting everything from scratch. Let's go ahead and make a wall-based family. I can go to New, and then family, and from here all the folders that you have been presented at. And because I'm going to model everything in the Imperial unit, I'm going to double click on this folder and then look for generic model wall base. Open. A wall-based family basically means that it is going to be either attached or use wall as its shape. Actually, it can be a door, window, or picture frame that you hang on the wall, or it could be a TV that's mounted on the wall as well. And in this case, I'm going to model a bunch of 2x4s that are hung on the wall as sort of a decorative element. And why would you do that? Well, for the sake of showing you how to make families inside of Revit. And as you have opened up generic model wall base, you will be greeted with this specific window here, placement side, and there's going to be a wall in the middle, and it is a basic wall generic. So this is a representation of the wall that your elements are going to be hosted from. And because it's going to be slats, we want to look at the wall from the elevation point of view. So elevations and placement side. So there is the wall that you're going to attach everything onto. And simply we're going to go to create extrusion, and then we're just going to click on the rectangle and draw sort of the 2x4 shape of the rectangle. And as we have drawn, it is not going to be the 2x4 size that we kind of thought of. So I just need to go back on this and then just perhaps modify to 4 feet, and then this becomes 3.5 inches. The actual 2x4 size is actually 1.5 inch by 3.5 inch. That's just a weird law of construction in the world we live in. So once you have done that, I can go ahead and click on this icon here so that the dimension kind of stuck, and then I can actually lock it. And then I can accept the extrusion by just clicking on this icon here. Let's make sure it actually has a correct thickness. Notice how the extrusion end is 1 foot. It is not the case, so let's go ahead and change to 1.5 inch, enter. Let's make sure we have modeled everything correct by going to the top view, and it is not really showing up. The reason is because of the cut plane. I can just kind of lower this down to the middle and down here so that that starts to show up on my view. And notice how that is embedded inside of the wall. You can also put a negative value here, but the best method here would be to go back to the placement side and then change the work plane to pick a plane. Okay, and then I'm just gonna pick the plane of this wall here. And as I do that, I go on the top. Notice how that now has flipped over. And if I highlight this element that we have extruded, notice now the work plane is the basic wall. Therefore, if I move this wall, it is all going to come with it. Undo that. Let's make sure the depth is actually 1.5. Yeah, it is 1.5. Undo. And then from here on the placement side, it is 3.5. That's good. And now let's go ahead and move this one MV for moving. And then I'm gonna try and move it to snap onto center grid here, or the reference plane that we have here. It is because I wanna be able to control the length of this 2x4 piece. And I wanna align AL for short, and then align this one and lock it. Basically, the edge of this piece is always going to line up with this reference plane. And in order to control the size, I actually need another reference plane, RP for short. And then I can just kind of draw a straight line down like that. And then AL again, highlight this reference plane, and then snap, and then lock. And as I initially have done, I want to make this into 4 feet. So DI for dimension line, click that line and that line, and then place a dimension. Now I want to change that to 4 feet. Escape a couple of times, highlight this reference plane. Now I can go 4 feet, enter. You see how now the length of that piece have reduced to 4 feet. So that is now behaving. As I pull this one, it becomes longer. As I push back with a certain type of dimension, it's gonna go back. Now this length needs to be a parameter for us to be able to control. So we just need to click on that one as we have done before. And this one, it is actually going to be instance based. The reason for that is because we want to have sort of the randomized different slats throughout the wall. So there are going to be many different length of piece that are hung on the wall, and we want to kind of control that arbitrarily rather than having 10, 20, 30 different types inside of Revit. So from here, we're going to click on instance and then name it as slat length. Okay, and you can see the dimension now has a name on it. And from here, we want to be able to confirm that it actually works as we have intended. Now you'll see under the family types, slat length is 4 feet by default. But if we change to 2 feet, apply, notice how that just kind of changes. And this process is called flexing, just making sure the family behaves as you have intended. So in this case, I'm just gonna go ahead and cancel that and then undo once so that the default length is 4 feet. Another thing that I want to test out is from the top view, change the wall thickness. Change that 12 inches, and now that kind of increased together, which is good to confirm. Undo that again, and then I can load into the project. Okay, so now as we have confirmed everything works correctly, let's go ahead, load into project and close again. And this one I actually want to save out because I want to be able to use it again. So let's go ahead and say yes, and I'm just going to call it the slat. And here it's a good idea to click into the options and then you check on these sort of options. In my case, I don't really want to have too many backups, so I'm going to change to 1. Okay, and then save. And as I save that, it is not going to come into this project. It's going to ask me to kind of place that slat onto this project. If I go up here, there's a retaining wall, and then I can just kind of highlight that wall and just continue clicking on the wall, place multiple slats onto the wall. And notice how it has these 2 triangles on either side for me to just kind of highlight that element and then stretch or shorten if I want to. And obviously we got to look at this one on the elevation view too. So if I highlight this specific elevation bubble, I can click on this checkbox, and then I can either double click this one or right click on this one and go to elevation view. And you can see how everything now has shown up, and they just kind of line up because they do have a specific elevation measure as a default, but I can just kind of drag them and then move them around to just kind of randomize onto this wall. So I can just kind of click on this one, CS for create similar, and then just kind of spread them throughout this wall. And I can just highlight one of them to see different parameters that has been assigned for this specific instance. As I have made this family in an imperial unit, I want to change the project as well. So I can go to manage and then project units. And from here, let's go ahead and change those to imperial scales for the area, the length, and then the volume as well. Yes, you may not work in imperial, but we kind of use 2x4, so I think it kind of makes sense. Let's just switch over. I want to show you something. Okay, and as I highlight these elements now, they kind of show in inches, so we can kind of modify if we need to. So select length, instead of this funny number, I can change to 6 feet if I wanted to, and then the change will show up here. And we can utilize all of these data that are coming from the families as well. So let's go down here and then right click on the schedule, new schedule and quantities. And then from here, hit G once for generate models. And from here, I'm just going to leave it as the default name. Okay. And then on this dialog, there are a few things that we want to include in the scheduled fields. So let's go ahead and find first the count. I can click on this button here, or I can actually double click on them too. So family, and then go down here and find volume as well. And then I can just hit OK. Okay, you'll see the count, family, and the volume of those things now have shown up. You can see I have one slat of this one that is 0.15. And let's go ahead and modify the order. And I think it kind of makes more sense if you were to have the family name showing up on top. So there you go. I have slat 1.15, and then I think it would be worth having sort of the total count of the slats as well as the volume. So let's go ahead and go to sorting and grouping and sort by family. And then here I can actually hit footer with the title, count, totals. And then in the formatting, I can go to count as calculate totals, volume, calculate totals. Okay. So as you can see here, the slats now have 27 of them on my model here, and then total of 4.13 cubic feet. But when you're ordering 2x4s, the cubic feet doesn't really make sense. It will make more sense to have the linear length. So let's go ahead and figure that one out. So from here on the elevation, I'm going to click one of the slats, edit family, and then under the family types, we're going to click on the length, and then we're going to go ahead and edit the parameter. And notice the box that we have skipped. We just left everything as the family parameter, and this one says cannot appear in the schedules or tags. So in order to have it showing up on the schedule, we need to have it as a shared parameter. Select that one, and then we have a select box that becomes available. You have not specified a shared parameter file. Do you want to choose one now? Yes. And because I don't have any parameter file, I'm going to have to create one, and then I can just create one on the desktop here. You probably want to dedicate it to your project folder, but here I'm just going to say, so here I'm going to just say shared, and from there you notice there's nothing on the parameter group, so we're going to have to make a group. Here I'm going to call it the slat, and then new parameter here, and the name we are going to call it as length as we have before, and then discipline is going to be common, and the parameter is length. Okay, and then okay that as well. Okay again, and notice how that now became gray, but also this is instance based. We can just go ahead and click on okay as well. Okay. And as we just kind of bring this onto project, instead of closing, we're just going to test it out. So we're going to go ahead and click that one instead, and then override the existing version. And notice how the length of them just kind of reset. It is because we have changed the parameter. We're going to have to modify, but what we want to confirm is the fact that we can highlight one. It still has a length, and then be able to schedule that on here. So from here under the field, we can now see that the length has shown up. So we can add that, and we can take out the volume. And then whilst that, let's go ahead and change the filter to length as well. So let's make sure all the ones that are showing up here has some parameter of length, and then we can go down to formatting and make sure highlight the length, and then we can calculate the total. Okay, that, and notice how everything else kind of disappeared because they did not have the length parameter, and now the total length of the 2x4 that we have is showing up. So that data is now available to you. You can now use that data to put an order for all of these 2x4s that you have to buy. And for the purpose of renderings and visuals, we want to assign some meaningful material on this element as well. And because we did not close the family, we can go down to this view here and then see the family itself. Here I can either assign a specific material to this geometry that we have created, or we can make it so that we can assign different materiality of this geometry inside of the main project that we are working on. So here I can either click on this button here to assign specific material, or I can actually cancel that and then just click on this small button that is available. And this is allowing you to associate a different family parameter that is the material. So I can put a new parameter and then I'm just gonna call this slat material. And this is definitely gonna be a type parameter as we are not looking to have too many different type of materials. Okay that, and then again, load into project, overwrite. Now, as I highlight this one, and then go to edit type, you'll see the slat material is now available. I can actually assign different one to this specific family type. Let's reduce the size of this window a little bit. And then I can search something like wood, and there's gonna be some wood already on this project. I'm gonna just assign softwood lumber and then okay. So softwood lumber now has shown up, okay. And then I can go to either shaded view so we can see better coloring of this, or go to up here and then from yard 3D view. Notice how that kind of shows up on this side here. So we now have finished making a family from scratch, and now we have something that we can use for scheduling or even for rendering as well. And what if we have some sort of 3D geometry, let's say from 3D Warehouse, that we want to bring into Revit, but also have some parameter on top of that so we can kind of modify? Well, I'm glad you asked. Let's go ahead and address that question. Before we move on, I want to make sure we kind of close this one and then save as well. So let's go ahead and save on top of what we had before so we don't lose that data. And then on the 3D Warehouse, we can simply search something like modern chandelier. And then we're gonna search by popularity. Let's see who likes what the most. In this one, Bola Suspension 21 Light seems to be something they would like in their project the most. So let's go ahead and download that 2020 model. And as they download, we can just kind of open it. And we are opening to confirm and make sure things are the way it should be. So let's make sure that it doesn't have any weird tags. I guess it does have one, so we're gonna just go ahead and delete that one. And then let's make sure all the materials are okay. We got a few materials showing up here. I don't think we need these, so we can actually purge them or just right click to get rid of it. And it is not gonna bring up any sort of question because it is not assigned. There's a little triangle sign that says it is assigned somewhere in the model, whereas these are just existing because they are just sort of residue of what it has received before. So that's now sort of clean. We got 3 different materials here. This is Bola glass, and then bronze or black, I guess. And then the color, this is sort of the material for the light. So let's actually call this light source, so that later we know what we are looking for. And also we want to be able to actually control the length of the stem because we want this to be somewhat parametric inside of Revit. So what we're going to do is actually get rid of the top piece here. Let's highlight that, delete. And notice how that just kind of remains as a short stem. I'm gonna try and delete that one too, and then come out of that. And we need some sort of reference here. It is actually easy to see if we just kind of make this slightly lighter tone. Okay, so from here, we can just kind of fill in that void so that it has some sort of shape. We're gonna delete that one, but we want to put some sort of rectangle on top that we can reference everything to. Revit doesn't like these rounded circle edges. So we're gonna hit escape a couple of times and then come out of the group modification and then hit R for rectangle and then hover over a couple of this endpoints here, and it's gonna kind of reference your shape onto, and notice how it just found the center here. I can hit Control key once, and then now I can draw the rectangle from the center. Click here once and then kind of take your mouse out And then out here, I can click once more to draw this small square on top of the face. And then from here, I can just make the material slightly darker so we can put it as a bit more bronzy color. And then I can save this out as a 2019 version. And this is important because Revit doesn't take a recent version of SketchUp file. It only takes 2019. That's just the way it is. And then from here, I can go to Insert, Import CAD, and then load the very same file. And that brings in at the bottom of the origin here. I can unpin this to be able to move it up top like this, but we don't want to snap onto the ceiling yet because we want some sort of stem for the light fixture. Okay, so let's look at the ceiling plan, the reference level here, and then we're gonna create some sort of shape, extrusion, the same practice as we have done before. Draw a circle from the center, and then let's say about 3 inches. So this is how big our mounting point is going to be, and we want that to be 1 inch thick. Apply, and then we're gonna hit this button to finish. And then we want to have another stem kind of drawing from the top as well. So change the reference plane, work plane to this face that we just created, and then draw another circle. Let's do sort of 1/2 inch circle. And then this one, we want to make sure we have some good length. 2 feet, enter, apply, and then hit this finish edit mode. So we're gonna look at from the front view. Notice how that one now is inside of the ceiling, and then the stem is showing up properly. So let's go ahead and actually change this one to have -1 inch so that it kind of flips around. And then we want to host this on a different plane. Pick a plane again and then highlight that surface so that it kind of moves. Now we want to make sure this light fixture is attached to this end right here. So let's go ahead and find the midpoint of this reference point and then park it somewhere here. And we're going to also draw a reference plane. We can kind of directly do it, but sometimes we have better behavior if we have some sort of reference plane that is acting with it. So RP, and then we're going to draw something on top of that edge there. Let's make sure that edge is aligned and locked. And same thing here, aligned against the light fixture, lock it there. So as we move this reference plane up and down, notice how the light fixture is starting to move. So we want this overall stem length to be a specific parameter. So we want to put dimension again, and then the same practice as we have done before. Maybe this one becomes instance because you have different ceiling heights throughout the house and you use light fixture multiple times. So let's go ahead and name this as the stem length. And then that becomes the stem length. We can kind of flex this model by just typing different dimension on the edit type, or we can just kind of move this around to see if it actually works. We want to have a default of, let's say, about 3 feet. So change that to 3 feet. Okay, and then again, we want to be able to assign specific material on this file because we have imported a SketchUp file. If you go to materials, notice how that specific bronze material has shown up. We want to assign the same exact material onto the stem. So let's go ahead and highlight these two elements, the light fixture element, and then change this one to bronze. Okay, and then also in the 3D, you can kind of see how that kind of showing up with the shaded mode. Okay, so the glass is showing up as transparent, which is very good, but we want to make sure the light source is also having some sort of emissivity, and it usually doesn't by default on Revit side. So from here, the light source, let's make sure we go to appearance section, turn on the self illumination, and then instead of dim glow, we need to have something high so that it kind of shows up on the renders and whatnot. And then let's make sure the Bola glass actually has some sort of transparency. So there you go. And then we have transparency amount so that it shows up as glass. That's good. And then okay. So that family is now ready to go, and then we can do load into project and close. We want to save this out as we worked hard on it. Light fixture, and then again change to the one here and then save. And once I have saved that, it wants to bring it into this project, but your cursor will say you can't because I'm not in sort of the ceiling plan. So let's go ahead and make a ceiling plan. Go to View, Plan Views, Reflected Ceiling Plan. I want off of level 1, and here's the ceiling plan. Notice how that is now showing up. I want to put one right here, and then that is showing up. And I don't know how that exactly looks like, so let's look at it from the yard. Notice how that has come in as I have expected it to be. However, it is showing up very low, so let's change that stem length as we set the parameter as 1 foot so that it hangs all the way up there. Okay, so that is actually looking pretty good now. Okay, now we successfully brought in 3D warehouse element into Revit with a parametric value, and we can actually view this scene inside of Enscape and expect the similar results. So let's go ahead and hit Enscape once. Okay, as the rendering shows up, I can flow into here and then see my light as well as the wooden slats that we have put in. I snap this window to the right and then snap this window to the left and then go down to that specific elevation. I want to make sure they are as playful as they can be. So I can kind of move that, stretch this one out. Okay, that is looking pretty good now. And if we go down to the site, something that I wanted to bring up is the fact that we can bring in Enscape's own asset library for the families that we need inside of Revit. Obviously, there's not much of a modification that you can do on top of the Enscape assets, but we can bring in very good looking families into Revit quite easily. And on here, I want to bring in some vegetation, so I can click on this elm tree here. Enscape downloads that data onto Revit. As you can see, I can just kind of highlight that and then place those trees. And we want to kind of modify the size of the tree as well so that they look somewhat randomized. But you'll see that all of those changes are going to be immediate there. And then I want to put some small bushes. Hit spacebar as you can rotate them. There you go. They just kind of showed up here. The wind is blowing perhaps too fast. So let's go to visual settings, down to atmosphere. I can just kind of reduce the intensity so that they don't blow in the air. But if you actually like that effect, I guess you could do that as well. But yeah. So you can simply just populate your scene a lot easier with all the assets that are available with Enscape here. And you can start to bring in a lot of different assets that are just available through Enscape here. They have more than 2,000 assets. But then again, that's a different way to utilize ready-made families into Revit so you can use it for your project. And on top of that, Enscape now opened the doors for custom assets, which you can bring in 3D warehouse files from SketchUp or even Rhino files, have proper material applied on Enscape side, and then use the exact same file inside of Revit as an Enscape asset. So that opened up a lot of different possibility for you to take external models onto Revit as their own family. And conveniently, I have made custom asset tutorial with the Enscape's new version release. So do make sure to check that video out. I'll leave a link in the description as well as a button for you to click on that corner. And whilst looking at the description of this video, don't forget to check out MSI's website for these amazing workstations. These workstations are really made for these architectural tasks that we do, complex 3D modeling to renderings, the scenes that are much more complex than the scene that I was working with, it will be able to handle without any problem. So if you have enjoyed this content, learned a few things, then please like this video and subscribe to my channel to continue watching these type of videos. Thank you so much for watching. As always, I'll see you next time. Bye.